name is Lance Walker from Michael Johnson Performance in the United States.
大家好，这是来自美国 MJP 机构的兰斯沃克老师。
I'm here to talk about today how we can apply some of the speed training that we do at MJP across any athlete, any age, and any sport.
今天我们来讨论针对任何水平、任何项目的运动员的一个速度训练。
We're going to define some speed for sport. We're going to identify areas that we as trainers can improve speed. And we're going to provide some practical solutions for you to use with your clients.
今天的话，我们首先来定义一下什么是速度，再而找到一些可以训练的速度的地方。最后的话，我们是学习如何去改善速度。
When we're talking about speed, this is about going somewhere a certain distance as fast as possible.
当我们谈到速度来说，它指的是我们在某个方向上移动，越快越好。
Now, in sport and in life, you can cover that distance different ways. You can accelerate, you can do this angularly using different movement patterns, or you can change direction. So speed has many faces.
所以不管你在专项当中还是在生活当中，速度都还有很多阶段。比如说你可以在多个方向上去做，比如说你在多个角度上去做。
To be a trainer of speed, it demands of you a system of organization. And this is the way MJP organizes their speed training in these 4 categories.
作为一个训练师的话，我们需要一套系统来支撑我们的实践。我们的 MJP 系统就是针对这种实践应用而设计的。
The first category is acceleration, and this can be defined as moving from a stationary or a slower position to a faster one. And the great example here is the start and acceleration in the 100-meter dash.
大家可以看到，这是我们100米短跑的启动阶段，然后我们称之为加速，它是从静止或从较慢的速度上突然加速到较快的速度上的一个阶段。
You can begin to notice how these athletes are gaining speed very, very rapidly. And one of the major focuses of our speed training is to help athletes of any sport be better at acceleration for their sport.
你可以看到他们这些运动员的加速有多快，然后我们设计速度的就是一个针对对象，就是所有专项、所有年龄的运动员。
Now, if you look through the eyes of acceleration and watch some of your favorite sports like soccer, you will see elements of acceleration happening all over the field.
当我们看到自己喜欢的一些体育运动的时候，我们可以看到加速无处不在。
Sometimes the athletes are stationary and accelerating. Sometimes they are accelerating from a moving position, but acceleration happens a lot.
有的时候他们是从静止开始加速，有的时候他们是在一定速度下进行加速，但是它总是在发生。
In more sports than you might think, basketball, another great example of where acceleration is very, very important.
再举个例子，比如说是篮球，在篮球运动当中，加速能力是非常非常重要的。
You can see the athlete as he blows by the defender, he has to accelerate his body in space in order to be effective.
在这个篮球运动当中，运动员非常快速的加速，然后摆脱防守者。
In order to play defense, it is important to be able to accelerate as well.
在防守当中，加速能力也是非常非常重要的。
You see LeBron James in that video clip, he changes speeds. He goes from a sort of a slower position to a faster position. These are all elements of acceleration that you as a trainer can improve in your clientele.
在刚才的这些视频当中，勒布朗詹姆斯和巴博萨非常快速的变向，然后摆脱防守者进行得分。
Now, one of the things to identify with all elements of speed, if you're a trainer, is you need to provide results for your clients. And so one of the ways to provide results is to show them improvement by testing.
作为训练师的话，我们一定要让客户或者是让我们的运动员看到他自己的进步。如何实现这种进步呢？我们要进行对比。如何实现对比呢？我们要进行测试。
This is one of the tests that Michael Johnson Performance uses to measure acceleration.
这是我们测试在 MGP 的体系当中测试加速的一个测试。
The athlete starts at a fixed position and sprints as fast as they can through 9 meters of distance, and we time how long it takes them to get there.
他从静止的起始位置开始，然后跑9.14米，就是10码，然后我们要看他跑过这段路程的一个时间。
So this is a very easy test for you as a trainer to use to identify areas of opportunity for improvement in clients that acceleration is important.
这是让我们告诉运动员加速能力非常重要，并对他们进行前后对比的一种非常非常好的方式。
Now, there's also elements of this linear speed that happens after you have accelerated. We call those maximum velocity.
还有就是我们在有一定直线的速度之后，然后非常重要的另一个素质，我们叫它最大速度。
Now, maximum velocity refers to the top speed that an individual can achieve in a linear fashion.
最大速度指的是个人直线方向上能到达的最大速度。
Think of this as the maximum speed that the athlete can attain.
这也就是运动员能达到的一个最大的速率、最大的速度。
And even though it's a very fast thing, it doesn't last very long. It's very difficult for athletes to maintain their absolute speed for very long.
它超快，但是它很难维持很长的时间，只能维持几秒钟的时间。
Here's a great video of Asafa Powell running at maximum velocity, and you can see the shapes and the angles and the kinematics that this athlete is using to create massive amounts of linear maximum velocity.
这是一位非常著名的短跑运动员在跑步的时候，他的最大速度阶段的一个视频。你可以看到他的动力学，可以看到他的姿势，可以看到他的体型，他是用尽全力来维持一个最大的速度。
You can also see in the sport of soccer now elements of maximum velocity. After they've accelerated, they're reaching these top speeds, and they're doing this more and more often in the sport of soccer.
在足球运动当中，我们也可以看到运动员首先通过加速来到他的最大速度，并维持这样子的速度。在足球运动当中，这样的能力是越来越被需要的。
If you work with athletes or clients that play soccer, helping them be faster versions of themselves will help them improve their soccer performance.
你在训练足球运动员的时候，就一定要训练他的最大速度能力，帮助他们改善运动表现。
Maximum velocity is also very evident in sports like American football. This is the great Barry Sanders.
还有就是在美式橄榄球当中也需要，这是桑德斯。
And you can see this athlete's ability to pull away from the defender. These are all things that are coachable, they're trainable, and they're things that you as a trainer can do very, very good with clients of improving.
这个你可以看到，他以非常快速的速度摆脱防守者，让别人都追不上他。这种能力是能训练的，然后也是可获得的。你可以让你的客户在这方面有非常大的改善。
Now, as you watch these videos, you begin to notice that there are mixtures of these different elements of speed. You're seeing elements of acceleration and maximum velocity blended together. And that's a common theme when it comes to training for sport.
你可以看到它是多种元素的结合，你可以看到它有非常好的加速能力，可以看到它有非常好的最大速度能力。这种模式的话，你是可以在训练中，这种结合的模式是可以在训练中获得的。
What makes Barry Sanders great was not only his ability to run fast, but also his ability to change direction and accelerate. So the combination of these elements of speed is really where the advantage comes for you as a trainer to work in with your clients.
所以你可以看到这名运动员之所以非常非常出众，不仅仅是因为他的最大速度非常快，还因为他的变向能力非常非常强。所以作为训练师的话，你可以在多个方面、多个元素上对你的运动员进行改善。
Now, if you were just going to test maximum velocity, you would do it differently. At this position now, the person would accelerate as fast as they could, and we would only be measuring the amount of time it took them to travel this same 9 meters, but once they've maximally accelerated. So all we're evaluating here is 9 meters of maximum velocity.
你可以看到我们提到的冲刺跑测试，它从起始位置从0开始加速，跑过20码之后我们才开始测量，然后测量的是它20码之后跑过的10码的一个最大速度能力。
Well, now that we've looked on the straight ahead or the linear type of speed, let's look at that other type of speed that you saw in those videos, where the athlete was changing direction and accelerating in strange angles.
我们谈完了直线速度方向的训练，那么现在我们来到一个多方向速度来讨论一下。
The first category of our multi-directional speed we call angular acceleration.
第一个的话，我们讨论多方向速度的第一个成分是角加速度。
This is the ability to move effectively and rapidly in non-linear or non-cursorial locomotion patterns, things that aren't straight ahead running.
所以我们讨论到角加速度，我们指的是快速、有效、高效的非线性的运动模式。
We'll talk and show videos of some of these curvilinear runs, shuffling, diagonal running, and even backpedaling are all elements of angular acceleration.
然后在之后我们会通过视频的形式去展示曲线跑、滑步、对角跑以及向后跑。
Now, as you watch the video clip of soccer again, see if you can see elements of this angular acceleration or nonlinear acceleration.
当我们看到这名足球运动员，我们是否能看到他的角加速度或者非线性加速度？
If you watch closely, you'll see folks backpedaling, you'll see crossing over, you'll see shuffling. These are all elements of speed that you as a trainer must evaluate and must train in order to be good for sport.
你再仔细的看，可以看到他的滑步，可以看到他的滑步，可以看到他的变向。你作为一个训练师，这些都是你要改善的成分。
Another video clip, this one from the National Football League, and I want you to watch this athlete. He's going to backpedal, he's going to shuffle, and he's going to cross over. These are all elements of speed that you can train as a trainer to help your athletes be better. So just keep your eyes on this athlete right here.
所以要注意这位穿蓝色这边的这位运动员，你可以看到他的后退，可以看到他的滑步，可以看到他的交叉步，这些都是我们作为训练师要改善的方向。
Watch this athlete.
看他。
You can begin to see where elements of nonlinear acceleration, is helping one athlete beat the other athlete. So we want to help these athletes be better.
所以你可以看到他这种能力会让一位运动员打败另外运动员，会让一位运动员对另外运动员形成碾压。
These are all things as a trainer that are very simple to train once you know how to do it.
所以作为训练师的话，如果我们知道如何去训练的话，它是非常容易去训练的一些身体素质。
Notice these athletes blending these different elements of angular acceleration, from crossovers to shuffles to backpedals.
你可以看到这些运动员是如何把不同的成分结合在一块的，从交叉步到滑步再到后退。
So American football is a very important sport for this sort of acceleration.
在美式橄榄球当中，这些身体素质是非常非常重要的。
Basketball may be one of the most important sports that uses angular acceleration.
篮球运动可能是最需要这种角加速度能力的一个项目。
In this clip, look at all the elements of backpedaling and shuffling, crossing over, curvilinear running that takes place in the sport of basketball.
看看勒布朗詹姆斯在这一回合当中展示的交叉步、展示的向后退、展示的滑步等等等等能力。
LeBron with a curvilinear run right there.
看看勒布朗的曲线跑。
There was a shuffle, a late shuffle that happened right there. So it's happening all over the court if you know what to look for.
可以看看巴博萨的一个滑步，所以它一直都在发生在篮球场上的。
And the great thing being a trainer is you can help the athletes, whether they're elite athletes like this or very novice athletes that are just playing for fun. You can help them enjoy the game of basketball more, the better they are able to move angularly on the court.
所以作为一名训练师的话，如果你能帮助运动员能更好的移动，他的运动体验是更好的，无论他是就是新手运动员，还是像刚才我们视频当中看到的高水平运动员。
Now, just like our other elements of speed, we like to test this element of speed to know how much better the athlete is getting. And the test that we prefer is called the Illinois Agility Test.
所以针对脚加速度的话，我们也要进行测试，像其他的前面的这些运动素质一样，我们常对脚加速度采取的一个测试是伊利诺伊灵敏测试。
You can see the athlete, they will start at a position, they will have to navigate through this course of cones.
所以你可以看到运动员是被这种他的脚锥，他可以被这个锥筒去引导的。
And the time that they take to produce that movement is the time of their angular acceleration in seconds. Here's a video.
可以看到，这是我们伊利诺伊实验，他完成这个的时间就反映了他的脚加速度能力。
And the athlete started, is now having to use curvilinear running, crossing over.
所以你可以看到，sorry， 你可以看到运动员他做了曲线跑，他做了交叉步等等等等。
If you work with kids, as an example, this test may be one of your best estimates of angular speed for kids, and it's very, very important. The younger the athlete, the more important this particular test becomes.
如果你带青少年进行训练的话，伊利诺伊的灵敏实验可能是最重要的实验。
Now, the fourth bucket of speed that MJP trains in the system is change of direction.
然后我们再谈变向能力，也是 MJP 系统当中非常重要的一个能力。
Defined as the physical and technical qualities used to change the body's position from one form of locomotion or pattern to another.
是身体上和技术上改变为身体位置的能力，从一种运动模式切换到另外一种运动模式。
Or the continuation of that pattern in a different direction or vector.
或者同一运动模式在不同方向式量上的连续性。
Now, change of direction involves elements of perception. What is going on around you? Reacting to defenders, reacting to the ball, and making decisions. What movement should I do to win the event or to win the ball? These are elements combining with change of direction to produce what we call agility.
所以变向和一些知觉性的一些因素，比如说我们可以看到预测，还有反应决策的能力，它结合起来就形成了我们称的灵敏能力。
So this is a very important term that you're going to hear a lot about as fitness instructors if you work with athletes, is agility, and how important agility is to success in sport.
所以你可以听到很多训练师都在谈这种灵敏能力，它是在运动当中非常重要的一种能力。
So let's watch some videos of soccer and see if you as trainers now can see elements of change in direction, where the athlete is changing patterns or is using the same pattern and changing vectors or directions.
你可以看，作为一个训练师的话，你要观察一下他这个运动员在做的时候，他是做 不同模式之间的转换，还是在完成它同一个运动模式在不同方向、不同适量上的一个变化。
Sometimes it's helpful as a trainer to watch something away from the ball. So instead of watching Ronaldo or somebody with the ball, look at some of the defenders and see how they change direction.
作为训练师的话，我们作为专业人员，我们不要一直盯着球看，我们要看看旁边的人，看看这些防守者，看看他们的变向。
You can see how the defender is having to react and respond, make decisions.
所以你可以看到这些防守者的话，他们要反应，他们要做出回应，然后做出相应的动作。
Now, Ronaldo is also having to make some decisions as well, but he's maybe able to choose in a lot of cases, whereas the defender is strictly having to react to what Ronaldo is doing.
C 罗首先要做出 C 罗做出一定的决策，然后他的防守者反应并做出相应的决策。
So as you use our system of training, you must understand that even though the athlete may be very good at changing direction, they can still be less than good at agility because there is these elements of decision making and perception that are involved in agility.
所以你会看到很多运动员他变向能力其实非常强，但是为什么他在他的灵敏就表现不好呢？因为他忽视了很多其他的方向，就是我们刚才提到的一些知觉因素，比如说他的反应，比如说他的预测能力，比如说他的决策能力。
And one of the things that I think can help you as you learn and utilize this system with your clients is to begin to watch sport. Watch it for movement. And I'm a big fan of watching soccer, but I like watching the movement of soccer even more. And I think by watching videos and watching soccer games, you begin to see these movements over and over. It will help you as a trainer be better at your job.
所以作为训练师的话，我们一定要多看运动员在比赛当中做什么。Lance 是一个非常好的Lance 非常喜欢看足球，但是他不是看足球比赛，他经常观察的是运动员做什么动作。
You begin to see again as you watch games, all sports, for the most part, there's a blend of all four of these categories of speed, linear, multi-directional.
你可以看到在所有的项目当中，运动员都将多种元素结合在了一块儿。比如说它的直线，比如说它的多方向能力，它都是结合起来的。
Now I'm playing the same clips, a lot of these cases, to show you how your eyes, you can begin to draw in and see these elements of different types of speed, even in the same clips that we were watching before. And so you can begin to see the blend now of these change in directions, these angular accelerations, and these linear patterns of movement, all blended together to produce sport.
我们把这些视频放一遍又一遍，就是让大家知道它的运动素质是混合起来使用的，它的直线能力，它的多方向运动能力都是结合起来，才在运动当中去展现出来。
And as a trainer, if you know what to train and you know what it looks like, you know what the parameters are of being successful at it, you can help your clients be just better versions of themselves, whether they are in the NBA or they're just playing a friendly game of pickup with their friends in the park.
所以不管是在 NBA 这种高水平比赛，还是就是跟你朋友一块出去打球，随便组个球局，当你去理解了它背后的本质，理解了背后的参数，理解你要做什么的话，你就知道如何去训练。
Now, in this video clip of the professor, just watch the defender. Just watch the defender trying to guard the professor and see if you can see how many times change of direction occurs.
你观察防守接球手教授的这个防守者，你看他做了多少变向的动作。
So you can see this defender is having a very difficult time guarding this athlete.
你可以看到这个防守者防守教授的时候是非常非常困难的。
Watch him again. He has to change direction rapidly. He has to react and respond.
你可以看到他快速变向，然后他必须反应，做出回应。
And once he reacts, then he must change into a different locomotor pattern, a crossover, or a shuffle, or a back pedal.
当他做出反应的，
it looks bad.
当他做出反应的时候，他一定要做 转变动作模式，可以转变成滑步，可以转变成其他的一个交叉步。如果没有转变动作模式，你可以看到刚才就是它的下场。
And you as a trainer, you with the right tools and the right system can help this individual be a better version of themselves.
作为训练师的话，兰斯可以很自信的说，你现在就在正确的位置学习正确的方法，帮助你的运动员变成更好的一个运动员。
So again, if you watch enough video, you watch enough play, you will see there are motor tasks that are linked with that change in direction.
你可以看到它的运动任务，然后它与变向是相连的，连接起来的。
And that are linked to other elements of sport. For instance, a jump shot. There you saw the athlete change direction and shoot a jump shot, then land and change direction again. So it's all blended together to form basketball.
你可以看到有很多元素结合在了一起，它先变向，然后做一个跳投，最后落地，再做一个变向。
As you watch this athlete play defense, you'll see they have a very difficult time moving their feet. So their change of direction is really not very good.
你可以看到这个视频里面的防守者，他的变向能力就非常差，被教授耍得团团转。
I can't tell if that's because the athlete is lazy or they don't know how to move, but this athlete is really struggling right here.
不能说运动员非常懒，然后但是你可以看到他非常非常挣扎。
Now here's a pretty good athlete, Roger Federer, and I want you to see his change in direction here, where he links different motor tasks with change of direction. In this case, hitting a tennis ball.
你可以看到国王费德勒，然后在他的变向，他把很多元素都连接在了一起。
Watch him change direction.
首先看他的变向
，strikes, and now changes direction again to get back in position.
击拍之后，然后迅速变向，再回到起始位置。
Strikes the ball and changes direction to get back in position.
击拍击球，然后再变向，回到起始位置。
Accelerates, strikes the ball, changes direction.
加速击球，然后再变向。
It's so important for us as trainers to watch human movement, and I'm afraid that we don't do enough of that. And I think all it takes is a keen eye to be able to see these elements of speed across all different sports that you train.
所以作为训练师的话，我们一定要观察人体的动作，这是我们成功的一个要素，这也是我们发展运动能力的一个速度能力的一个基础。
Now, the great thing about training for speed is as we watch these elite athletes move, all of these same systems can be trained with kids. And that's very, very important for you to consider as a trainer when training kids.
所以作为运动员的话，我们要作为训练师的话，我们要知道这些高水平运动员，他的训练方式其实也可以运用到我们的孩子们、青少年的训练当中。
Well, how do we measure change of direction? In our athletes, we use this change of direction test called the 5-10-5 Pro Agility.
我们如何去测量变向的能力？在实践应用当中，我们使用的是55 Pro 灵敏测试。
This involves the athlete starting at a static position, moving 5 yards to the right, 10 yards back to the left, and then 5 yards back through the finish line, and we're measuring the amount of time it takes them to complete that task.
所以如何做505测试呢？你可以在图表上看，它先向右移动5码，然后向左移动10码，再向右移动5码回到起始位置。这是我们测试灵敏的一个非常好的办法。
You can see the athlete starts with their hand on the line. They must move rapidly to the right, touch the line, rapidly back to the left, and then back through the finish line.
你可以看到，他首先向右，然后碰到这个标志锥，然后再向左，然后跑到10码，摸到标志锥，然后回到起始位置上。
And you as the trainer are standing in front here with the stopwatch, and you're starting the clock when their hand leaves the line, and you're stopping the clock when they cross the line again.
所以作为训练师的话，我们测试这个对他灵敏进行测试的时候，他在他手离开这个线的时候开始计时，然后在他回到这条线的时候掐表结束。
And just like with all these tests, we are going to use these tests to identify areas of opportunity, but also compare how well is our training working for this athlete? Are they getting better at this test? And if they are, then they're getting results from our training of agility.
所以作为训练师，我们要进行前后的对比，他们有没有变好，有没有改善？如果变好改善的话，就证明我们的训练是有效的。
So there's the 4 buckets of speed. Linear, we're talking about accelerating and running at maximum velocity. Multidirectional, we're talking about angular speed and changing direction.
所以我们速度是由4个子元素的，4个子目录的话，就是加速、最大速度，然后就是指正的是直线，而较加速度和变向指正的是多方向。
Now, this system really will allow you as a trainer to organize your training. And there'll be days in your training systems that you're going to want to focus on acceleration. There'll be other days that you want to focus on angular acceleration. So this allows you to organize your training session to attack more specific elements of speed with your clients.
在我们的实际训练当中，我们可能在今天训练他的加速能力，在明天训练他的较加速度能力。作为训练师的话，我们这样子进行安排的话，就是可以有针对性的训练特定的运动素质。
And by using testing or assessments, you can help your client understand which element of speed should they work on: acceleration or maximum velocity, angular acceleration or change in direction. Testing will allow you to guide the training.
所以我们要利用测试来引导训练，我们要利用测试让运动员知道他哪些身体素质是需要改善的。
Now, when it comes to sport is a mixture, as we've talked about. It's a mixture of these elements. In a lot of cases, it's hard to know without testing what element of athletic speed the athlete needs to work on. And so that's where testing can help you understand which element may be their area of opportunity to improve.
所以刚才我们提到运动专项，然后是这些元素的集合，所以如果没有测试的话，我们就不知道哪些方面需要改善。
Now, what you also saw as you watched those clips of sport is you can see how important it is to link these elements together. We call that grafting.
所以我们要知道如何去把这些元素连接起来，我们称之为 grafting， 它在英文上对应的词的意思是指。
And so grafting is this linking or splicing together of these different movement patterns. And so allowing you then to use all different types of patterns in sport. Not only can you have to be good at all those patterns, but you also have to be good at connecting those patterns together.
这些单独的运动素质不仅仅是要发展单独的运动素质，我们还要发展如何去把这些运动素质连接起来的能力，这也是非常非常重要的。
So let's look at another example of Roger Federer, where all these things come together. The first thing you see is Roger's going to react. He sees the ball coming off the other person's racket and he has to react.
所以我们现在以罗杰费德勒为例，看一看如何把这些成分连接在一起。首先，他看到球，他就要做出反应。
He's then got to make a decision. Which direction is the ball going? How fast is it going? And how hard do I need to move to get over there to it?
然后他要做出决策，这个球朝向哪个方面？朝向了哪个方向？然后他要移动多快才能去击到球？
He's then got to respond. So he's got to make that decision in his brain, and his brain then has got to get his body in motion. So there's a responsiveness that happens.
然后做出决策之后做出反应，他的大脑告诉他做出什么样的反应，做出什么样的动作。
And so all these first three things are going to happen very, very quickly, within a matter of nanoseconds from the time the ball leaves over here to where he's able to see it in his eyes, make some decisions, and get his body in motion.
这些他的反应、决策和反应的过程，其实发生的非常非常快，然后他需要在短时间内迅速做出这3步骤，然后才能更好的在在专项当中，然后去做出反应。
So now in this case, he's made his response. He's got to get his body moving. So he's got to accelerate. Now he may not be accelerating straight ahead. He may need to accelerate backwards. He may need to shuffle accelerate. He may need to do it on a diagonal with a crossover. So there's a lot of options here for this athlete, but he's going to have to accelerate in order to make this next play.
做出反应的时候，他就要做出加速。做出加速的话，你可以看到恩斯刚才举出非常非常多的方向，他可能要向前，可能要向后，可能要侧滑步，也有可能做出对角线的一个运动模式。
And then finally, the athlete is going to have to link that acceleration with something else. And in this case, somewhere in there, there's going to be another acceleration. There may be a racket that has to get swung. Something's got to happen. He's got to link all of this to make sure that he's effective in his sport.
在做出加速之后，然后他就要把许多成分连接起来。在这个案例当中，他可能是加速完之后，然后用另外一个加速去连接，也有可能是加速完之后挥拍击球，这些都是他们要把这些元素连接起来。
So now as the trainer, you should have a system in which you can evaluate all that's going on, from reaction to decision to the response to the acceleration, in that case in the crossover, to the grafting or linking to the forehand, and then re-accelerating back in the opposite direction.
所以作为训练师的话，我们要有一套系统来去测试他的反应、他的决策啊，另外他的大脑的反应，还有他的加速，还有他的再加速的能力，我们要对这些东西进行一个测试评价。
Now, if you've been paying attention, you can see very quickly that there are elements of change in direction. You can see elements of angular acceleration. I can even see elements of linear acceleration.
你可以看到这里面有非常多的成分，它有变向，还有角加速度，也有线性加速度、直线加速度。
But in this clip, do we see any elements of maximum velocity? I don't think so. Not in this clip.
但是在这个视频当中有最大速度吗？他不认为有。
So in this case, for tennis, your system of training may incorporate more acceleration and change in direction than it does maximum velocity.
所以在训练网球运动员的时候，我们可能更针对的是他的脚加速度，而不是他的最大速度。
So when we're training tennis players, whether they're professionals or semi-professionals, we're not spending a lot of our time in maximum velocity training. However, when we're training kids, we still train a lot of maximum velocity because they're still kids and need to be the best possible athlete for tennis.
所以在实际的训练当中，如果是针对的是高水平或者是半职业的网球运动员，我们就要主要是着重于训练他的加速能力，而不是他的最大速度能力。但是在训练孩子的时候，我们依旧要发展他的速度能力，因为速度能力的发展能为他的运动带来更多的潜能。
So you as a trainer, obviously we train movement. We can train grafting. We can also begin to work into our training elements of training reaction, decision-making, and responsiveness. So you as a trainer have the ability to help your athletes be better at all elements.
所以作为训练师的话，我们可以测量训练他的加速能力，也可以训练他的就是把各种成分连接在一起的能力，而且我们还可以训练他上面的那些反应决策和大脑的反应能力。
Now the MJP system of speed training, we typically focus on the movements themselves, and we allow the sport to help us to utilize those new movements through the reaction, decision making, and responsiveness. So our focus with MJP primarily resides here in the movement training itself.
你可以看到 Lance 在这里画了2个圆，然后我们作为训练师、体能训练师，我们主要做的是把下面的几个成分发展好，而在上面的话，我们也要适当的进行训练，让他们在运动、在专项当中能更好的做出相应的动作来。
So now see if you can begin now. You've seen all these elements of speed. Focus now on those areas where these different 4 elements are linked together, where they go from a sprint to a change in direction, or a change in direction to a tackle. See if you can see these elements of grafting in sport.
你可以看到它不同运动素质的一个连接，然后就是从比如说从冲刺到了一个变向，然后比如说从冲刺到了一个打阵，然后都是它是不同成分的一个连接和结合。
Watch this clip again. The athlete number 21 here in the white jersey. Just watch them.
可以大家关注一下这个穿白衣服的21号球员。
This athlete trying to graft running forward to running back in the opposite direction. So that's the area that this athlete may need to work on, is the actual linking of those 2 movement patterns.
所以你可以看到这名21号球员的话，他可能更需要的一个能力是向前到向后的一个连接能力。
So we see this a lot in the NFL athletes that we train, athletes that are very, very fast, but have a hard time connecting their speed elements together on the field.
所以在 NFL 橄榄球联赛当中遇到的一个问题就是，很多人他动起来是非常快的，但是他们把这些成分结合在一起的能力是相对较弱的，这也是我们要针对性训练的地方。
Now let's look at the basketball clip again. See if you see elements now where these athletes are blending, change in direction, angular, acceleration, and even some maximum velocity things together on the court.
你可以看到这个篮球运动在篮球运动当中，他们把变向、把脚加速度、把加速度，然后甚至是一些最大速度连接在一起。
Let's watch LeBron.
再看一下
acceleration,
他的加速，
linking it to a vertical jump and a dunk.
然后连接成一个纵跳。
Dwayne Wade.
韦德。
That was some very poor crossing over by that athlete right there. So there's some examples of bad technique and bad examples of speed as well.
你可以看到勒布朗的防守者，他的交叉步做得非常不好，他给了我们一个反例。
But these basketball players are doing this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times per game. It makes a lot of sense for us as trainers to understand it so that we can help them in the things that we do, whether that be weight training or agility training or flexibility, mobility, stability. These are all things that we need to understand the sport in order to help them be better at their sport.
所以作为训练师的话，我们要了解他们的专项，了解他们的体育运动，然后就是帮助他们进行改善，因为这些动作都是他们在场上做几百遍、几千遍的。
Now, this is an example of grafting or linking of 2 different types of speed. Maybe you didn't see it at first, but you'll see it now. Linking acceleration with maximum velocity. So watch as they start and accelerate. And at the end of the clip, they're up running at maximum velocity. So even in the track and field, grafting happens.
即使是在田径场上，这个它的动作的连接也是各种成分的连接也是存在的。你可以看到它一开始飞快加速，加速完之後來到最大速度，然後它這裡就存在一個加速和最大速度之間的連接。
Now, is it important for a 100-meter track athlete to change direction? Probably not. Probably not as important as it is for a basketball player.
所以对于一个100米的运动员来说， 变向能力是非常重要的吗？可能就没有像篮球运动当中那么重要了。
So that's also part of our system, is to make sure we understand movement so that we can identify what are the most important elements of movement for a specific sport, a specific, maybe a specific age, even a specific element of problems or concerns or injury. The more you know about your sport as a trainer, the better you're going to be able to target your speed training to help your clients be better.
作为训练师的话，我们就要使用 MJP 的系统去了解它专项到底需要什么，它的专项动作有什么，它的各个年龄阶段需要什么，还有它的损伤预防方面需要注意哪些东西。所以你越了解专项的话，你的训练效果就越好。
Now, I'm a big fan of running fast, and I will tell you this as trainers, if you can help your athletes, regardless of what sport they are, if you can help them be faster straight ahead, there's a lot of chance that they're going to be faster in their sport. We've seen that at MJP time and time again. Helping athletes be faster straight ahead is always a good idea.
所以你可以看到，Lance 他个人超喜欢跑得快的。所以在 MJP 的系统当中，我们也看到很多人在经过训练之后，他的直线的加速能力，他的直线的一个速度得到了飞速的提升。
And even though my partner Michael Johnson and I do train a lot of track athletes, and he is known for track and field, a very small percentage of our athletes that we train are track athletes. Most of them are training for different sports, but we bring a lot of these speed elements from track and provide them for the athletes that play other sports.
在Lance Walker 和他的合作者麦克约翰逊他们两个人在实际训练的时候，他们会训练不同成分。他们训练的运动员当中，只有很少的一部分是竞赛运动员，但是他会把这种竞赛当中运动的运动素质，然后发散到所有的运动员身上，然后全面的开发他们。
So that's our categorization of speed. That's how we organize speed at Michael Johnson Performance. Now, I want to provide you a rationale. Why should you as a trainer consider helping your athletes, your clients, be faster?
之前的话，我们谈到的是速度的一个成分的分类，然后那么现在的话，我们谈一下它背后的基本原理。
Several reasons for this. One, research and experiential evidence both what we know in the science and what we know from experience tells us that we can improve speed. Speed can be improved.
然后是根据我们的经验以及实际的研究，然后我们得出一个结论，就是速度能力是可以改善的，并迁移到运动表现上。
And in most cases, by improving an athlete's speed, you give them a better chance of improvement in the sport discipline itself. So speed is being faster version of yourself is typically never a bad idea for athletes.
所以作为运动员来说，让他跑得更快，永远都不是一个坏的选择。提高速度的话，它一定会对他的运动表现产生迁移。
So some things you might not have thought about when it comes to why should you speed train. One of them is to reduce risks of injury, that speed training can actually provide you a vaccine for certain types of injuries.
所以我们很多东西是没想到的。Lance Walker 会给我们讲到，比如说速度可以降低损伤风险，然后他刚才提到，速度训练是损伤的一剂疫苗。
As we also spoke about before, even sometimes something as simple as improving someone's straight ahead speed or linear speed can actually have hangover effects, improving change in direction and angular acceleration.
然后还有就是它成分之间的迁移，有的时候我们改善它的某些能力，比如说它的变向能力以及直线能力的话，我们是可以改变它的弧形跑 以及他的不同角度的跑的一个能力。
Now, this may be something we hadn't thought of as trainers, but improving someone's speed can actually indirectly help them with their endurance by improving their repeated sprint abilities.
然后还有一点，我们之前可能没有想到，就是我们改善它的速度的话，会间接的对它的耐力产生良性影响。因为它耐力的阶段的话，它会做很多重复性的动作，我们就把这个重复性动作就改善了。
So in sports such as soccer and basketball, some of those sports, improving someone's speed abilities can have an indirect effect on improving their ability, their stamina abilities for that sport. And that's something that a lot of trainers don't realize.
还有就是很多训练师没意识到的，就是比如说在足球啊、篮球训练当中，我们改善他的冲刺能力，实际上可以间接的去改善他的耐力能力。
Now, how about for those clients that you train that like to run, they like to jog or they like to run? You can actually use speed training to improve their running economy, which is going to allow them to be a better runner, even though they're not trying to run fast.
还有就是你可能会接到很多跑者运动员，他们特别喜欢跑步，训练速度的话可以改善他们的跑步经济性可以改善他们的跑步经济性。
And obviously, you'll see it in all those clips, some of the elite athletes of the world, all the way down to those that are not elite. Just by improving some of those initial things, those initial steps in sport can make all the difference in the world for their success or failure.
然后不管你训练的是高水平运动员还是新手运动员，然后改善他的启动和第一步的能力，然后可以对他的运动表现产生更好的良性影响。
Now, as trainers, maybe it's not your skill set. Maybe you don't understand speed, so you don't train it. I encourage you to remember, though, that when we talk about fitness training, one element of skill-related fitness is speed. And so for you not to understand it and to not train it when needed, potentially leaves you sort of out in the woods a little bit. You're not really training all the elements of fitness when you actually could and potentially should.
然后的话，作为训练师，我们可能经常就是着重的是去带运动员去举铁，然后我们就忽略了一些技能上的东西。但是你要知道，速度跟技能是息息相关的，所以我们不能去忽视它。然后当你去重视速度训练的话，它可能会给你打开一个新的世界。
Now, maybe you train kids and you're training fitness for kids. Speed, even if they're not an athlete, even if they don't play a sport, speed for kids is a major component of their physical literacy.
然后对于一些训练小孩子的青少年的训练师来说，速度是他的身体素养的一部分。
And we're going to be talking about other elements of physical literacy in other talks during IdeaFit, and we'll talk specifically about some of the elements that you can train that we use in our system called the Next Gen system.
然后我们在另外一个次世代，就是 MJP Next Gen 的课程当中会给大家细讲什么叫做身体素养。
And we'll show you where there's specific elements of speed are more important to train at specific ages than at other times in your life. So if you understand physical literacy, you understand when to apply certain training methods with kids. And speed, I can tell you, is a very important fitness trait to work on with kids of all ages.
在之后我们讲身体素养的时候，我们会讲到在什么时间训练什么样的特定的运动素质，然后更好的发展我们的青少年运动能力。我可以告诉你，速度是非常非常重要的。
And again, maybe most of you don't work with athletes. It's not just for athletes. One of the things that can help improving speed can help them improve just being a better locomotor person, a better ambulator. And so those can have indirect positive effects on their health-related fitness.
所以的话，刚才 Lance 提到改善速度能力，其实可以间接的去改善与健康相关的运动素质，可以让他们动得更好。
And so you think about if you're not a very good mover, if you don't move very well and have very good locomotor patterns, you're probably going to be less inclined to move more. And we all know the more you move, the healthier you will be. And so this could be a great indirect way of improving someone's fitness through improved locomotor competency.
然后很多人他想要改变运动素质，但是他的移动能力不好，移动能力不好的话，就让他的训练大打折扣，也就阻碍了他的身体素质的一个改善。所以我们一定要改善他的速度能力，让他动得更好，他才能更好的健康的生活。
So I want to emphasize this again. What I'm talking about doing is not just for sports performance. This is something that you can use with your fitness clientele and to help them be better versions of themselves, whether they are an athlete in sport or they just want to be better in life. Speed training is for them.
所以Lance Walker 在这里强调，我们不仅仅改善的是运动表现，我们也要去改善他的大众的一个健康水平。这些不管是运动表现还是大众健康水平，都可以通过速度训练来实现。
So you may be asking yourself, okay, Lance, how do I do this? Well, there's a couple of ways that we do speed training through the MJP system. One is direct methods.
然后有人会问啊，那你告诉我们这是什么？这基本原理。然后现在我想问问这怎么做呀？然后现在来给大家讲具体的方法。首先我们讲到的是直接方法。
And this is where we're actually going to do the training itself. We're actually going to move. We're going to do the speed. We're going to practice the technique where you're actually directly practicing what it is you're working on.
直接方法即指的是你就练什么做什么，然后它直接改善它的动作能力。
The other is indirect methods, and these would be things like strength training, power training, etc.
然后我们提到间接方法，也就是我们刚才提到了力量训练以及爆发力训练。
So here's some examples of indirect methods, things like plyometrics. We know that plyometrics can help athletes be faster.
然后我们现在举一个例子，就是举一个间接方法例子，就是快速伸缩复合训练。快速伸缩复合训练是让运动员变快的一个非常好的方法。
We also know elements such as strength training
以及力量训练
help athletes improve their force production, which then allows them to be potentially faster.
然后还有是它的力量生成能力，就是也可以间接的促进运动员他的速度的变快。
And again, what our system allows you to do as a trainer is to understand which drills should I use to attack which types of speed.
所以我们的系统可以告诉你，我们选择什么样的训练方式，然后改善哪种速度素质。
As an example, these plyometrics you see in the top frame may be a little bit more skewed towards linear elements of speed.
然后我们可以看到，他在上面的这个人做的快速伸缩复合训练，主要是针对直线的速度。
In order to bias these plyometrics for multi-directional speed, we might simply have the athlete jumping through these barriers laterally or with a crossover.
然后比如说，如果我们想要改善它在多方向的快速伸缩复合，我们就让它在侧向去做，或者是让它去在交叉步的情况下去做。
Same with the strength training. You can see this athlete producing a step up, a very popular strength training exercise, very linear in nature, so probably more biased towards the linear speed bucket.
然后你可以看到这个下面这个运动员，下面这张视频里面，这个运动员在做一个上台阶登阶的训练，它是非常跟线性速度、跟直线速度是息息相关的。
So if we wanted to focus more on multi-directional speed, we may do things like lateral step-ups or lateral lunges.
然后，如果想要发展多方向的一个速度能力的话，我们可能要多做一些侧向的登台阶训练。
But these would be examples of indirect training for speed.
这是我们提到了速度训练的一些间接方法。
Now, direct methods are a little more exact, a little more specific to the movement that you're training. And so in this case, it's going to look like very similar to, or in some cases, the exact thing which you are targeting. In this case, acceleration. So watch these two videos and you'll see acceleration being trained directly.
直接训练的话，就是想练什么就做什么啊，它是非常直的，也就是非常直接的啊。
So you can see in the top frame here, this athlete is doing drills that mimic linear acceleration in the bottom frame. So these are all drills designed to practice the movements of linear acceleration in this case.
所以你可以看到运动员在上边做的动作，就是主要是针对加速能力，他是在模仿加速的动作。
What you can see here is in the bottom frame, the athlete is actually practicing acceleration. So these direct methods are actually very similar, or in some cases, the exact movement quality that you're trying to train.
你可以看到，在下边这个视频当中，运动员也主要是针对加速能力进行训练。他们两个在本质上，就是上面跟下面这个视频当中做的动作，在本质上可能是相同的，他们都是为了促进他的直线加速能力。
Some of the things you can see here, if you look at these two frames, you can see the drills here kinematically. Look at the pistoning action of the legs. And then down here where the athlete is accelerating, you see those same pistoning actions. So they're very, very similar in terms of motor task.
然后Lance Walker 指出，不管是上面这个运动员还是下面这个运动员，他们都做了一个手枪样的一个运动。然后他们在动作上面，你可以看到是非常非常相似的。
So the MJP system uses a combination of both direct methods and indirect methods to train speed.
我们 MJP 的系统是把两种结合，然后有直接方法，也有间接方法。
We have found that combining these two methods actually allows us to get better results with more clients. And so I encourage you, when you look at your system, to consider using this combined approach, using both direct and indirect methods of speed training.
将直接方法和间接方法结合，就形成了组合式的方法。而我们在实践的过程当中发现，组合式方法对大多数人的改善是更好的。
Now, something else to consider as a trainer, if you're working with kids, and we work a lot with kids at Michael Johnson Performance, is that children these days are not taking part in as much of this free play sort of things. And that's an area of opportunity for you as a trainer to help them develop, because they're not learning this on their own. They're going to need help in some cases from you as the trainer to learn how to be faster.
然后我们也知道最近几年这种小孩们、儿童们、青少年们，因为这个电子游戏啊其他原因，他们动的越来越少，他们像这种玩耍是越来越少的，所以这是一个非常大的市场。作为一个训练师的话，我们要帮助这些孩子们，去让他们动得更好，跑得更快。
If you watch this clip enough, you'll see this poor kid in the middle here. This is a game we call Sharks and Minnows. This poor kid in the middle is having to try to tag these other kids, and he's having a really hard time with it. But at least he's experimenting with his body, and he's learning what works and what doesn't work.
然后你可以看到他们在玩一个鲨鱼，我们中国应该是叫做过河，然后就是不要被鳄鱼捉到的那个游戏。可以看到中间这个小孩超可怜的，他就抓不到别人，但是起码他是在体验，他是在领会，他是在进步。
The nice thing is that they're learning. And in some cases here in the United States, we don't get enough of this free play. And so you as a trainer, that might be an opportunity for you to create games, create environments where your young athletes can experiment with speed and learn to be faster versions of themselves.
然后Lance 说，在美国的话，这种小孩这种玩的机会是越来越少。其实，在我们中国也是这样子的。作为训练师的话，我们要让他们在玩中去学习、去进步、去改善身体素质。
We train thousands of kids every year at NJP, and so we have a lot of experience with this. And we've actually put together a course called the CNDS, or Certified Next Gen Development Specialist, that has all of our programming built into it for you to learn. It's a 4-day course.
然后我们MJP 然后有着丰富的教学和实践经验，我们开发了一个叫 CNDS 的课程，它是一个4篇的课程，帮助你系统性的对这些东西产生一个了解，有一个了解和理解。
So if you get to work with kids, you want a system to help organize those speed parameters, we've got a great system to allow you to help you be the most effective and efficient trainer of kids that you can be.
然后作为小孩子们，他们需要速度的素质，然后通过系统的学习，你可以变成一个练习速度、改善身体素质的更好的青少年体能训练师。
But whether you're training kids or you're training adults or even elite athletes, as a trainer, if you have the right system and you have the right ability to dissect movement, you can make improvements across pretty much everyone you work with. And that's the wonderful thing about speed training is typically if you're doing things correctly, you can make improvements with anybody, even the elite.
就是不管你是训练的是孩子还是成人还是高水平的运动员，只要你的方法对，选对了正确的系统的话，你都可以让他取得进步，这是我们一定要知道的，他是可以进步的。
And this is my son right here. I'll show you, my son is right here. That's my son right there. And so I can tell you I'm using the CNDS with my son right now. So this is not just something I've read about in a book. It's things that I'm actually applying to my own family.
然后你可以Lance 说这里边有他儿子，他不仅仅是把这个 CNDS 的系统利用在了，就是他不仅仅是写在了书上，还把它用在了他的家人身上。
Now, you as a coach, I want you to look at this coach right here and see how excited she's getting. She's actually getting excited for these athletes. She's jumping and she's moving and she's excited. That's also something as a trainer that you can learn from the CNDS when training speed. You've got to be excited. You've got to be with those kids emotionally to get the results.
然后你可以看到中间的这个青少年体能训练师，他非常非常兴奋，他一直在跳，他一直在叫，他一直在对运动员进行指导，这也是 CNDS 的系统当中的一部分，一定要让我们兴奋起来，要让我们与运动员融入在一起。
So using these two methods, direct and indirect, we have the ability to actually teach speed.
然后利用我们的直接方法以及间接方法，我们就是可以开始去进行速度的指导。
And in teaching speed, we're getting a couple of things. With direct methods, where we're actually practicing the speed, one thing you're doing is you're improving the neurological aspects of speed. You're actually training the nervous system to be better and more efficient.
直接方法，然后的一部分是改善它的神经系统。
What you're also doing is you're improving the musculoskeletal tolerance and capacity for speed. So you're getting stronger tendons, stronger ligaments, even stronger muscles and blood supply.
然后另外一个就是在骨骼肌肉系统上去打好基础， 我们去改善他的骨骼肌肉能力以及耐受性，我们去让他的肌肉更好，让他的韧带更好，这样是我们运动的一个基础。
So our system sort of follows three basic phases. You're going to learn the movement. There's a very basic pattern that this athlete's going to learn. Then they're going to rehearse it. And then ultimately, we want them to be able to express it and tolerate it in the sport of their choice.
然后在训练当中有3个阶段，第一个阶段是学习，第2个阶段是预演，第3个阶段的话是迅速的把这个动作素质去表达出来，然后并能有一定的耐受性。
So you can see the athlete in the corner here practicing very basic direct methods of practicing acceleration, then rehearsing it in this environment, and then ultimately putting these things together to do these very special things on the playing surface.
然后你可以看到在左上角的那个视频当中，这个运动员在学习非常非常基本的东西，然后在左下角的视频当中，运动员对他的所学进行预演，进行实验，然后在右边的视频当中，他把自己平时训练当中所学的，然后以及所预演的去表达出来。
So this is a very important part of the MJP system, is we're not going to just hope that the sport itself helps these athletes get faster. And we're also not just going to blindly rehearse movements. We're going to put all of these things together with some very basic fundamental things, putting all this together to give this athlete their best chance of realizing their potential. And all three of these elements is very, very crucial to the MJP system.
在 MJP 的系统当中，这3个部分都是非常非常重要的，从最基本的学习到在我们训练当中进行一些结合性的预演，去结合不同的元素，再到在复杂情况下的过程当中的一个运动能力的表达，它是我们系统当中非常非常重要的3个部分，我们要把它结合起来。
And now, as the trainers, you start to learn our system now. You're starting to see with your eyes all these different elements of speed that are happening here in sport. But now you can begin to see how we begin to break those elements down into their constituent parts. So we're all the way back here looking just at linear acceleration, blending it with change in direction, and then ultimately you can see where it manifests itself in the game.
你可以看到 Lance Walker 刚才提供了一个非常好的逻辑。首先我们从右边的视频当中分析它的专项动作需要什么，再到我们分析我们要在实验当中预演什么，分析实验预演什么，再分析到它的需要什么基本的动作上面，然后我们再进行再把这个过程逆过来，就是我们的训练的一个逻辑。
Another key aspect of the MJP speed training system is the idea of it being a concurrent system, meaning that we're going to train a lot of different elements of athleticism, not just speed by itself.
然后我们现在提到 MJP 系统的一个同期系统，同期系统指的是同时训练，也就是说我们同时训练多种素质，而不仅仅是速度素质。
So these become the 6 elements of athleticism that the MJP system targets. Speed, that we've talked about a lot today, is only one of those 6 elements.
我们在指的说到运动能力的话，它指很多很多，速度只是运动能力当中我们分类的6种当中的一种。
Now the interesting thing about athleticism is that these elements together make up athleticism, and they are not mutually exclusive from one another. Elements of strength has a play with speed. Elements of stamina has plays with speed. So these things are each trainable, but they're also not mutually exclusive from one another.
然后这些训练这些运动能力之间彼此之间不是独立的啊，他们是可以相互去协作，也是相互联系的。
When we're training clients at MJP, ultimately we're trying to improve all elements of athleticism.
我们最终的目的是要把他的运动能力去整体的改善，去把所有的成分都去增强。
Now, inevitably, when you're training with clients, you'll identify areas that are maybe a little more lacking in specific areas, and that can be your emphasis or your bias to your training. But at no point are we only training one element. We're typically training all elements of athleticism all the time.
然后我们在训练当中，我们会发现有些运动员在某些运动素质上、运动能力上是有欠缺的，但是我们不仅仅是针对他们的短板进行训练，我们要整体的进行训练，把所有的运动能力素质都进行训练。
Now, you might be saying, well, gosh, how much time do you have to train? And in a lot of cases, we'll train kids and athletes between 1 hour up to 3 hours at a time. So our training sessions have to be very efficient.
然后有的人会说我这个时间不够呀，我可能就1个小时，或者是1到3个小时时间，我这时间哪够呀？所以这个时候我们要讲到训练效率。
Now we also must be efficient with what types of speed, what types of strength, what types of stamina should we train? Sometimes that's based on the sport. Sometimes that's based on the age of the client.
然后我们要讲他训练哪种速度，训练哪种力量，训练哪种耐力。有的时候的话，我们是针对专项进行训练的，有的时候我们是针对年龄进行训练的。
Now this is a slide from our CNDS certification course.
这是我们 CNDS 的一个认证课当中的一张表格。
And this shows you a glimpse of how we would train, in this case, young athletes from age 6 all the way up to 18 for those different elements of athleticism. And you can see where speed here in the blue is trainable at the different ages.
然后我们这是一张表格，这张表格表现了在6到18岁不同阶段，然后发展相应运动素质的一个指南。然后我们也可以看到速度相关的素质是呈蓝色的，我们可以看到我们的速度素质是贯穿于这个阶段的，我们可以在很多阶段都发展运动的速度素质。
Now, this is not to say that that's the only time you can train these elements. So these are not windows that open and close, but we have seen with our data that suggests that these become the optimum times in terms of the athlete's development age of training these specific elements of speed. You can train them all the time, but this becomes a more efficient way of training based on age.
它不是说在其他年龄段就不能训练速度素质了。他的意思是说，在这个阶段训练，它的效率是最高、是最理想的，就是根据他们的数据来就是来看到的。
And in the CNDS course, we go over each of these elements specifically, from flexibility to stability to balance to mobility. We give you specific programs and protocols to follow to attack those various age bands.
然后在 CNDS 的认证课当中，我们会针对这些不同的素质，然后告诉你在这些不同的素质它有什么具体的方案方法去训练，它是会有一个更细节的讲解。
So that's the way we think big about our system. Now let's look at the actual training session itself.
然后刚才的话是一个从大的方面去看。然后现在的话，我们从训练课的角度去看。
So the actual session itself has a systematic approach and has 6 elements: dynamics, power, speed, force, metabolics, and regeneration.
然后在我们的训练课当中，其实是包括6个部分的。我们可以看到有动态热身、有爆发力、有速度、力量、能量代谢以及恢复再生。
So all of our training sessions at MJP are organized in this way. Different amounts of time depending upon what the focus might be.
然后我们的所有的 MJP 的训练课都是在这个基础上进行制定的，然后只是具体的操作时间取决于你的目的。
But we feel like it's very important as a trainer at the NJP system to have this organization. What this allows you to do is to be very, very efficient with your time.
然后在 MJP 的系统当中，我们要讲究效率，然后这样子的一个安排就是告诉我们如何更有效率去组织一节训练课。
You can see in our training system, in our session, there's that element of speed training. And we break our speed training down into two elements, speed school and speed application.
然后我们可以看到，我们的速度训练的话，其实是分为两个部分的话，我们第一个部分是速度教学，第二个部分是速度应用。
So speed school is going to be the first 5 to 10 minutes of that session, and we're going to be working on those drills, those specific sort of very rudimentary drills that will help set us up for success when we actually practice the skill itself.
然后我们会首先做5到10分钟的速度教学训练，它包括练习以及一些基础知识，它是非常细节、非常有针对性、非常具体的。
And ultimately then we're also going to be doing applied work. We're actually going to practice the actual speed that we're training, and in this case acceleration was the example we used.
然后在之后的速度应用的一个环节当中，我们主要做的是实践练习。我们要练什么练什么就做什么。
So we're going to do both in our session. Speed school, practicing motor patterns, educating specific drills, cues, teaching progressions.
然后我们这两个方面，速度教学与速度实践都要去做。在速度教学当中，我们通过动作进行运动模式教学、专项练习，然后演示进阶等等一系列的环节。
So this can be as little as 5 to 8 minutes of time that we're going to be focusing on very, very basic things related to the postures and the motor patterns responsible for being fast in that specific motor pattern, whether that's acceleration, max velocity, change in direction, or angular acceleration.
然后在5到8分钟的速度教学当中，我们针对的是基本的姿势以及模式，不管是你做的是加速、最大速度、脚加速度，还是其他的变相。
So this has got the word school in it. We're actually teaching, so we're being good teachers. Just like you are in school, we're teaching them these basics, these basic tools that then they can use when they get out and begin to practice using them, whether that's with us as a trainer or in their sport.
然后在速度教学当中，我们教练的身份其实是一个老师，我们是在进行教学，我们在教导运动员如何更有效率的去完成动作。
So let's use an example. Here's a great example of a speed school drill. We call this the wall drill.
我们现在来举个例子，这是一个速度教学的非常好的例子，我们叫做墙面练习。
You can see this athlete is practicing a very basic fundamental skill that's related to acceleration.
然后我们可以看到运动员在做的是基本的与加速相关的技能。
We are coaching this athlete. We've shown them videos. They understand that there should be a lean, that there should be these angles of the leg when they accelerate.
然后我们在这个环节当中会告诉运动员，你的身体是有一定前倾的，你的腿是一定角度的。
So even though the athlete's not going anywhere, they are practicing some of the basic motor patterns that are important, in this case, for linear acceleration.
所以这是在做一些非常基本的教学。
There are many, many, many drills that you can learn and apply in your training. This is just one of the most basic, but they're similar. They're very, very similar across all elements of speed, basic to more complex. And so this is a very rudimentary thing that leads to a much more high-level thing later on.
然后它是一个非常非常基础的东西，从最简单到复杂，然后它是要有一定过程的。
Now, speed application then is where we're actually going to take those basics that we learn and we're going to actually practice doing the motor task, whether that's, in this case, our example was linear acceleration. We want to practice the thing itself.
然后在速度实践当中，我们就是想要练什么，我们就练什么。
And this is important because this is where the real stickiness is going to happen. This is where they're going to take what you taught them and begin to make sense of it neurologically, and then take that with them when they go back to their life, to their sport. It's very, very important for the long-term learning to apply these speed things.
然后在长期学习的时候，这些东西都是非常重要的，这是帮助他们让他们带到场下的一个非常重要的训练环节。
And ultimately, we want to get them in a position where they're not thinking about it, that they're actually almost on autopilot.
然后我们刚才提到的一种 autopilot 自动巡航模式，它是一种自动化的阶段，即把这些动作模式刻在骨子里。
And I'll back up a slide. That's what's important to know about speed school, is if all you do are drills that are not actual application, there is no indication that by itself will make this athlete faster. So speed school drills by themselves is no guarantee to making them better.
然后速度教学的话是没有去保证他们更好的，才是最基本的东西。
You must have them apply and practice. And so our speed application is typically 10 to 12 minutes long in our session. It's more time spent actually practicing that skill set where they must ingrain it and make it subcortical or subconscious.
然后我们进行完这个速度教学的时候，其实速度应用是更重要的。我们要把它们刻在骨子里，它的时长是10到12分钟。我们要通过不断的练习，去让运动员的运动素质把它们刻在骨子里。
So here's an example of some young athletes training at MJP, and you can see we're now using a game to practice the skill of acceleration.
然后这是我们 MJP 训练营当中的孩子们，你可以看到他们是在训练加速能力。
And you can see what the game is. The girls and the kids in the back are having to chase and tag the person in front. All of them are having to use acceleration speed technique that we've taught them, but they're now having to apply it in a game-like situation.
然后我可以看到是后边的孩子在追前面的孩子。然后后面的孩子他们都要使用我们在之前训练到的东西，把那些东西投入到实践当中。
So again, the system is important. They practiced the basic skills, and now we're taking it and we're applying it in a real world setting.
然后首先我们这就提到了系统的重要性。首先的话，我们去练习它，然后再其次的话，我们实践它。
This is important as well. Some of you trainers may not have as much time or facilities to train like we do here. That's important then for you to know what's most important. And most important is speed application. If you don't have time for both, you should choose practicing the actual speed itself and not do drills.
然后的话，我们重要的东西是速度应用。不管你的受到什么条件限制的话，我们都要找到最重要的就是速度应用这个环节啊。
And if you train kids, you'll see the smiles on their faces. They love playing games. And some of our best speed application for our young athletes is when we can design games that actually train the element of speed that we're looking for. In this case, acceleration.
然后你可以看到这些小孩们玩得非常开心，所以在我们的系统当中非常重要的一个环节就是设计游戏，然后让在设计游戏的过程当中发展他们的速度素质。
So in actuality, what this coach has done is they've hidden the training in what looks like a game. The athletes, they feel like they're having fun and playing. The coach is very strategic. He's using the system to set up a game that attacks the speed element that he's training.
然后在这个教学当中， MJP 认证的教练会利用他所学的东西，去利用系统去设计相应的游戏和训练，去发展什么样的运动素质，去发展速度素质的哪个成分，这都是非常重要的。
And if you train kids, one thing you'll learn is the more fun that they're having, the better result they're going to get, and the longer they're going to train with you. So it's a good business move to make sure your kids are having fun when they're training.
所以在训练孩子的时候，我们有个原则，就是你的训练越有趣，这些孩子们他的训练效果越好，然后他跟你训练的这种他的忠诚度越高，他跟你训练的时间也就越长。
So the system of MJP is a combination of drills, repetitive rudiments, combined with that practicing, and if that sweet spot where those overlap, that's where the real true improvement happens.
然后在我们刚才提到速度教学以及速度应用当中，速度应用这两个部分是一定交叉的，而这个交叉部分我们叫做最佳点改变，就是在这个区域发生的。
You as a trainer, if all you do is drills, there is no guarantee that they will improve in speed.
然后作为训练师的话，我们在速度训练当中采用的练习，速度教学当中采用的练习，它不一定是有效的，它不一定能提高速度能力。
Your system of training should also link these basic elements to the more advanced elements. There should be a linkage between these two in your training.
所以我们的训练要把基本的东西和高级的东西相结合，把它们结合起来。
The example might be, as a teacher, you wouldn't play with Play-Doh and make shapes in here school and then go ask the athlete or go ask the student to do multiplication tables. It's not a fit. You want these two to be complementary.
然后我们要把这两个东西去对应上，然后就是不要去单一的进行训练。
And then ultimately you build backwards. So if you understand what the client needs to do, if they play basketball, you understand now what a basketball player needs from a speed application, and you can then build backwards some of the speed school, some of the rudiments and drills that you might need to work on to help that basketball player be a faster basketball player.
然后我们在训练当中，我们知道比如说训练一个篮球运动员，你知道他需要什么，你才知道训练什么。然后我们逆推，然后在速度教学当中，然后针对最基本的东西进行训练。
So again, as we look at the overall system, back all the way up here.
我们现在看一个训练系统，从整体上面来看系统。
Our entire training session might only last 1 hour.
我们一堂训练课的时间可能只有1个小时。
We might spend as much as 30 minutes of that hour training speed.
我们可能花30分钟的时间去训练速度。
Our warm-up that we do, our dynamics, is going to fit that speed theme.
我们的动态热身的话，然后是针对这个速度进行训练的。
The plyometrics and power is going to also be very theme specific to the speed element that we are attacking.
然后我们做的快速伸缩复合训练以及爆发力训练也是针对速度进行设计的。
When we go to the weight room and do our resistance training, guess what? It's also going to be theme-based for the speed element we are training.
我们之后做的力量训练也是针对速度进行设计的。
Another important element is conditioning. We're not going to do our conditioning early in the training session. We're going to save our conditioning towards the end so that we train speed when the athlete is their freshest.
然后就是能量代谢训练，我们不可能在训练课的一开始就训练能量代谢的能力，我们要把它放在后边，然后我们的动态热身其实是为它做准备的。
And so ultimately, you can organize your training session to be very movement specific or movement themed.
所以我们要根据动作，以动作为主题，以运动活动为主题设计我们的训练课。
And what that'll help you as a trainer, it'll help you to be more focused. It'll help you to be more efficient with your training sessions. It'll also help you target the specific elements of speed that particular client needs to work on the most.
然后这样做的目的是让你更有针对性，让你设计出更有效的训练。
So if the example was linear acceleration, if that was the focus of your training session, all the other elements of the training session will complement that particular movement pattern of training.
比如说你这堂课想要训练的是直线加速能力，那么其他所有的成分都是为你的直线加速能力去服务的。
So again, if we were focusing on acceleration, and this was the end result of our training, we're trying to get better at this, the entire session will have that theme.
然后在训练中的时候，我们所有的一切都是为了速度应用这一部分的训练而服务的。我们要改善的就是它，就是画蓝圈的这一部分当中的东西。
So in essence, we are building backwards. Our entire training session, we're building backwards from whatever the speed component is or movement component is that we're focusing on for that day.
然后我们we're going backwards.
And so if linear acceleration was your theme for your movement, one example might be plyometrics would be very linear and vertically based.
所以比如说我们这节课要发展的是直线加速度，那么我们其他的部分也是跟直线加速度相关的，比如说你的爆发力训练的话，也是跟直线加速度相关的。
The strength training in the weight room might also be complementary, much more linear and vertical in terms of force displacement.
然后力量训练的话也是直线的，然后与直线加速度相关的。
Whereas if you were working more on multi-directional speed, your plyometrics, your power training, might be more multi-directional in theme, lateral, crossing over, rotational.
如果你做的是多方向的训练，那么你的快速伸缩负荷训练或者是爆发力的训练，它是更偏向于多方向的。
And your strength training, again, may be more in the frontal plane or in the transverse plane that you load these athletes.
然后此时的话，你的力量训练的话，多偏向于冠状面、额状面。
What this does is this system allows you to be very targeted with your training. And what we found is when you are more targeted, you get a faster result. You also get a result that is more applicable to the sport itself. So we actually get a very efficient and effective outcome when we have a targeted approach to training.
所以我们的训练一定是要有针对性的。我们发现，如果你的训练是有针对性的话，我们能更好的对专项进行改善。
So you can see here's another example of speed training. This is an exercise we do called 20 yards of cones.
这是我们一个20米的就是追筒跑的一个训练。
You can see that the coach is demonstrating for these young athletes. So these athletes are over here and they're watching their coach demonstrate the drill.
可以看到教练在进行示范，然后我们的运动员在看教练的示范。
Now he's doing elements of angular acceleration.
他在做一些角加速度。
In this case, he knows exactly where he's going to change directions. He knows exactly what movement pattern he's going to use to navigate the course. So this is an example of speed school.
这是速度训练的一部分，这是速度教学的一部分。他知道他要去往哪个方向，他要去往哪个标志筒。
Now, if you look across the way, you can see athletes now applying some of these basic elements that have been taught here. They're applying it in that game of sharks and minnows.
然后你可以看到它在速度应用当中，他们是在练习他们在速度教学所学的东西。
So as you watch the video, watch the basics over here and see if you can see some of those things applied over here.
所以你可以看到，这两个左边这个右边这个视频，它其实是有一部分是重叠的，是相似的，非常非常类似。
So the concept would be, for a systematic approach, would be to take these athletes. If this is what you want the athlete to be able to do, this game, understand this game, understand the movements that are required in this game, and then build backwards the rudiments and the drills necessary to set them up for success.
所以我们的思路是，首先看一看在速度应用当中到底需要哪些东西，需要哪些成分，然后我们逆推在速度教学当中针对这些成分进行训练，来更好的改善运动表现。
And this again is only one element of the 4 different elements of speed that we can train as trainers. So there's 4 different elements, and you can see we're training one specific element here, but when they're applying it, they're blending those 4. But the key focus of the day was on this one element, but they may be applying all 4 of them when they're actually out playing their sport.
然后我们可以看到，在训练速度教学当中的速度教学时，我们可能只针对一种成分，但是在我们的速度应用当中，我们在训练多种成分的结合，练习他们把多种成分结合并连接的能力。
You can again watch the kid in the middle here, the shark, and you can begin to see where that particular kid is struggling in various elements of speed, but certainly is struggling in these elements of change in direction, angular acceleration. So we know that this athlete is going to benefit from some structured rudiments and drills that attack the specific elements of those speed components.
然后你可以看到中间那个孩子，之前我们提到中间那个鲨鱼，它非常挣扎，它的变现能力其实是比较差的。当我们发现问题的时候，我们就要在训练课当中去解决问题。解决问题的话，它一定会进步的。
Now, as a trainer, I'll tell you this. Just by making this athlete more fit, more physically fit, is not a guarantee that they're going to be better athletically. So don't think that we as a trainer can just get this athlete more fit and have it translate to faster. That doesn't work that way.
然后我们也要知道，这个运动员不是他的运动素质更好，就证明他的运动能力越好。
We as trainers can also do things like weight training and strength training to help this athlete. That will help. Those are indirect ways of helping, but they're not by themselves enough to improve speed.
然后的话，我们作为训练师也可以采用力量训练等其他方式增强他的能力，但是这是一种间接的方式。
Strength training, fitness, diet, flexibility, these are all important things. They are very indirect supporters of being fast.
力量训练、饮食还有等等其他很多方面，都是他们决定他们跑的因素当中的一部分。然后我们都要进行注意。
Just like the other methods, these rudiments and drills, although they are close to what this athlete is needing to do, these drills by themselves is also no guarantee of improving speed.
然后我们再次重申，我们在速度教学当中，然后采取的训练手段，我们保证它能改变速度。
The ultimate is putting all of these things together and letting that athlete experience some of that improved strength and flexibility and coordination and balance that you have worked with them on. They must be given a chance to apply that. And when they do, that's when it becomes something that is sticky and resonates with them in their sport.
所以我们不仅仅是要进行速度练习，我们要把我们所学到的东西结合起来，应用在实践当中。
把这些东西结合起来，去让它做柔韧，让它做灵敏、平衡、协调等等等等，然后才能塑造出一个更加全面的运动员。
I thank you all for your attention today. If you have more questions or comments or suggestions or things that you would like to learn about this sort of content, I will be providing my contact details to IdeaFit, and they will provide you my WeChat contact so you can ask more questions and find out how you can get involved in more Michael Johnson performance education.
然后我会把微信然后给到我们的 idea 平台，大家可以通过平台来向我进行提问。如果大家有更多问题的话，欢迎大家来问我。然后想了解更多我们关于 MJP 认证课程的信息，也欢迎来联系我。
Thank you very much. I enjoyed my time. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.
感谢大家，非常感谢大家的配合，我们下节课再见。
Bye-bye.
Bye.